Hi, Jörn. Welcome to Darkroom Diaries. Thanks for making the time today to speak with me. As I have already told you, it's going to be a conversation about photography and your interest in photography, how your practice kind of evolved in a way. And we would also be looking at some of your pictures that you have very kindly sent to me. So, um,
Thanks for the invitation. So nice to be here.
very, very welcome. Um, we can to start with, we can actually go into how you got interested in photography in the first place.
hmm Yeah, I think as far as I can remember, when I was a very small child, I was always given cameras. Of course, that was the time in the 70s, 80s when there was no internet and no digital cameras. You just had these different kinds of pretty good quality cameras. I'm from East Germany originally, so we had these Praktika cameras, which are pretty decent quality. I think my father had one around. And I was also given these small cameras, like point and shoot cameras that are suitable for small children. So I kind of took photos without thinking about it much. And at some stage later on, I think that was rather jumping to the 90s, 20 years later, then I got interested in taking it more seriously and more going about it more consciously, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember your first camera?
Yeah, I mean, apart from this Praktika camera that my father had, which was too heavy for me as a child, uh, there was a camera called Certo. I think it's an East German model that is probably not widely known. It's CERTO. I'm not sure, if it could have been from any other Eastern European country, but I think it was an East German make, a very simple point and shoot camera. And a bit later, I got such a small Lomo camera. I mean, Lomo has that even evolved into a little hype, in the 90s or 2000s, this lomography stuff. But originally it was an old East German camera, and I had one of those, and now it's broken and nobody can fix it for me anymore. So, but it's a very particular style of photography as well that I don't pursue now. But yeah.
Was your father interested in photography as well?
Not particularly, but it was just a thing that people took. When they went on holiday, they took a lot of slides. Actually, slide photography was a thing. So when you went on a trip somewhere to the Baltic Sea coast, or you went even to some neighboring country, Poland, Czechoslovakia, to the mountains, you took like scenic photos, and then had evenings, slideshow evenings with friends and family, and showing them this kind of stuff.
That's pretty cool.
I'm not born into any kind of professional or more serious household of photographers, but yeah, I mean, at least my parents had these more serious, semi-professional cameras. That were already more than maybe the average person had. So,
Yeah, because now it's become like very accessible, right? With like the cameras coming into our phones, like everybody kind of has access to the technology at least. But previously it was kind of more I don't know what, like it's more exclusive, the club of photographers. So
yeah, I mean, if you wanted to be really serious about it, if you wanted to do professional like sport photography or landscape photography, portrait photography, you needed equipment that certainly not everyone could afford or could get their hands on. But I mean, even in East Germany back in the days, having a simple point and shoot camera was available to anyone. But yeah, I mean, it is not as accessible as it is now, for sure.
yeah. And have you, because I know that you still shoot with film, so when did you start with us? When did you start out with film for the first time, like seriously?
Yeah, after these childhood experiences that you were obviously with film, there was no other way. Um, I believe it was, we will see later. One of the pictures I've chosen was from a trip to Hong Kong. I studied architecture, And as it happens, architects are very often interested in photography. It's, because it's all, seeing a building and seeing perspectives. That's of course part of the architectural profession, three-dimensional thinking and so on. But I as a student, I took a year out and moved to Hong Kong for a year in 95, 96. So that would have been in my third year of study of architecture. And then Hong Kong proved to be such a real world cinematographic background, like somewhat of a Blade Runner kind of scenery, that I got really excited about photography. And I bought from a local photographer who run a little photo shop, where you could buy secondhand cameras, film rolls, the usual stuff that you could find often in those times still. I bought a nice little Pentax 35 millimeter Pentax K1000, I think is the model, that I still use. It's a little 35 mil camera, and I got really lost in photography and immersed in the city, just street photography, taking buses to final stops that I didn't know where they were, just intentionally even, to go somewhere that I hadn't been before, getting lost there and starting to take photos.
Yeah, I think those are the best kind of experiences, when you just, like, I remember for me, I was back in Kolkata, and we used to go out with some friends who were getting interested in photography, and we used to go out early in the morning, and we used to take these buses where we didn't know, we kind of knew where we were going, but it was just without any aim. So just go on the street, just go into the streets and just shoot what you can. And those are nice memories. But you were talking about architecture and how your education also kind of it didn't it was not exactly related to photography, but it was kind of complementing it in a way. You could see things from a point of view of an architect, right? Have you ever gone into any kind of professional training related to photography?
Never. Only it wasn't until I think 2018, 19, when I had already, for some years pursued a stronger interest in photography. After this Hong Kong experience, then after that I kept on doing it when I was back in Germany, and then later living in London and so on. But it was always just doing it for myself. But in 2018, 19, I started. There's a quite famous photo agency in Berlin, which is called Ostkreuz Agency of Photographers. It's like our little Magnum, but in a German context, much smaller. But it's a photo agency, and they do the photographers working there. They do the big jobs for the leading media and so on, and but they have a very particular style also maybe based on East German photography history. And they run a school. So this agency, they also have a school of photography, so the Ostkreuz School of Photography, where you can study photography for several years, but they also run open classes and workshops for practicing photographers. So I was basically joining a 1-year course with one particular photographer that I was interested in, and I wanted to up my game in portrait photography, because to that point I had always just engaged in landscape and urban and street photography, but I wanted to learn more about or practice more about people and portrait photography. So I joined that class, and for 1 year, so basically once a month we met for a whole day, and basically editing each other's series. Everybody brought their prints and their material, and then we were just talking about the photography, each other's projects, and all the projects that were meant meant to last for 1 year. And it was not about individual pictures, but it was about developing a series on a certain topic over the transcourse of of 1 year, and then ending up always with a exhibition in the end. And so I did 3 of these kind of classes. So that was in a professional background, but I have no formal photographic professional training apart from that.
Right. Yeah. But as you were saying, you have kind of delved into different genres, I would say. Like you've gone into urban, street, and from there you were interested in portraiture. So like what kind of affected this, like were your interests changing through time, or what affected this evolution? Like if you can just expand on it a little bit.
I mean, I was using these words now, street photography, which are like almost fixed terms now in photography. When I was doing it, I was never thinking about these words. I didn't even know them, I guess, because I was practicing photography always strictly on my own, and I never really talked about it much with other people. I sometimes maybe showed photos to my friends, and I think also my first partner had an interest in photography, and we were kind of photographing each other and so on. But I never pursued a particular genre consciously, and especially since I have an architecture background, I never did architectural photography at all. I mean, of course, I would photograph buildings, but never as in architectural photography. And just out of interest, I always just ended up concentrating on landscapes, either natural landscapes or urban landscapes.
Okay.
And but always kind of from a bit of a detached, vantage point. I never did in the beginning. I never did urban photography or street photography very close up, getting into people's, getting very close with people and their stories. It was more as a detached drifter,
Observer.
like a photography has always been very much for me in getting lost in my own emotions and thoughts. It's actually the act of being and of traveling and seeing than the conscious act of photography itself. I almost never stage a picture. I never ask somebody to stand in a certain way, or I never wait for a certain light for half of the day when that light hits that building and then I take my photo. I almost never do that. It's very much a dreamscape. And then the only evolution was then when I thought, okay, I would like to actually now also get closer to bodies and people, and that's when I thought, this Ostkreuz School of Photography, that's a very good place to get into touch with that. That was actually the only kind of external influence, really.
Just getting a little deeper, because you started talking about what it means to you, what the act of photography kind of means to you. When you go out with your camera and when you're looking at something, how do you is there a process to your photography? Like, do you know when you want to take a photo? Like, is there a process in your thinking which leads to your photos? Like, have you consciously thought about it at all? Like, if you haven't, that's fine, but just want to ask.
In the beginning I didn't, and over the years of practice and then since being in that school, I think I have more thought about it. But I think even though I do think about it more now, and I have engaged on long-term projects that have a certain theme, family or family history or stuff like that, and I pursue a certain theme. But apart from that, above all, more than anything else, it's a mood. I have to be. It's a bit inexplicable. It's for me, it's a kind of an artistic thing. It's an emotional state and a mood. When I want to a mood of contemplation. It has very much to do with movement, with travel. I like traveling. I like sitting in a train, for instance.
Okay.
I like trains.
Yeah.
Because the train, other than the bus and the train, you can move around, you can walk, you can talk to other people. There's more space, but still somebody else is driving you, and you're going through landscapes. And train travel is very common in Germany. So I don't have a driving license, funnily enough, and so I just like this act of just moving and being moved, while the landscape and sceneries are moving past like a film almost, and that gets you in almost like a trance. It basically gets you to another world. Like you go to the cinema, you want to go also to a different world. The space of the cinema, the darkness, and this window which is the screen gives you this other world. And I think when I do photography, I get into this almost cinematographic sort of mood. When I walk through my world, or just anywhere where I am, almost like a film spectator, right? I just move around. I enjoy my loneliness. So wolfish kind of, straying around, and just discovering and wondering at the world. Really, I think that's really being amazed, being surprised by it. Just what I described before, when I took this bus to the final stop in Hong Kong, I think I could tell one incident that happened there, if you are interested. So I ended up in a suburb of Hong Kong. So it was like a satellite, like a sleeper town, like where there were just residential buildings. There were no real shops and restaurants, just these typical Hong Kong 20, 30 story towers, residential towers. So I just walked in, and there was some concierge who didn't really stop me. I just said hello and then pretended I belonged there. And I just took the elevator to the highest floor, and then there was a door, kind of a technician's door, that was magically open, and so I could go to the roof. It was just not locked; it was open, and then from there I had a view over the whole city. But then when I opened that door, it gave me that glimpse of this completely new world I had never seen before. I had never seen Hong Kong from that perspective. Yeah. Then an alarm went off. And then I thought, oh shit, now I did something forbidden here. So there were two elevators, and then I just took a photo, and then I waited. So okay, there was one elevator moving, and I thought, okay, probably now the warden is going to have a look what's happening. And then when the other elevator was moving, I took the other elevator down and just left the building, and no one ever asked me. So I mean, it was these kind of
it's like a spy thriller,
kind of a bit exciting moments that then of course increase in that moment of that mood of excitement and adventure, and that leads to the best photos sometimes. So that was a moment I remember very clearly.
Yeah, but no, there is a process, I guess, because when you were describing it, the first thing that stood out to me was you describing it as like traveling in a train, because I think there's some connection between Germany and trains, because I've met I've limited experience, but I've met already like 3 people, I think, who are from Germany, and they're just so excited by trains. And as you know, we were living in Latvia, and then we didn't have trains in Kuldiga, but we went to Lithuania for a trip, and then this German friend of mine, he got on a train to go somewhere, and he was like childishly excited about this experience of going in a train. And I don't know, because it's very different for me, because we have like very long route trains, and it's like a hassle to go on a train sometimes.
Yeah, very crowded. I mean, I've been to India, but I mean, they're very crowded, and you have different classes.
But we are kind of deflecting. But yeah, these stories are like, it kind of stands out, because like you kind of go into this. You go with the idea of doing nothing, and then you find these places, and sometimes these scenes that kind of, I don't know, capture your attention, and you have to take that shot. And I guess like everybody has these experiences, but like it takes time for someone interested in photography to understand what is happening, you know. And I mean, it took time for me, for example, to understand like what I was doing, or like what kind of photos do I like to take. And uh, I mean, I was going around because in the beginning you're just interested in something, and you're just trying out everything you can, and then slowly you're developing a practice around it. And the more you think about it, the more you reflect on it, I guess you come up with a definition. But it's not always necessary to define. But when you're like doing projects and stuff, for example, you were saying like so what kind of projects do you generally do? You were talking about this project about family, for example, and like what are these, like how do you start such a project?
So in the beginning, unconsciously, when I lived in Hong Kong, then like the city was my project, right? Hong Kong is just so visually striking, especially to an architect. These really crazy buildings that you have, and peculiar shop owners, the contrast of very old stuff, very new stuff is striking. So that was my project. But then over the years, it became a bit more conscious. And one thing I have to say, we were talking about this, capturing the moment. I think I've really moved away from doing these, the famous one perfect one moment picture, the Cartier-Bresson black and white, where the shadow line and the woman, there in the back, it's just right, I that's very rare for me to take these kind of photos. Often, my photos are quite blurry. I'm not at the beginning. I think I just didn't care so much about sharpness. So it became a thing for me that often my photos are just not sharp, not in focus. But I don't intentionally do it. So some people, they intentionally do
Like a
whole
bouquet.
cameras or something, where the result is never in focus. But for me, it's just I think it comes from this kind of the movement and also the inner restlessness when I'm photographing, that I don't have the time, and it's just a split second that I sometimes realize, and I capture that. So it couldn't possibly be sharp sometimes. And so but the projects then that I pursued more consciously later, they were about the three projects I did in the Ostkreuz school, they were all family related. So the first project was really about the closest circle of the family, so literally my wife and my two children and myself. So just mostly also indoors. Some of the photos on the street, but in the vicinity of the house, not much background of the city. It was really just really our place, our family, and then I also discovered I'm this is very much about color photography, so it's definitely not a black and white thing for me. And then so that first project, then it just widened its circle. So from the first project was on the immediate core family, and the next one was then already more, that was then during the time of the pandemic, where I used photography also as an excuse to take long walks and get out of the house and just, wander the empty streets in Berlin during the times of pandemic, and just take, also photos of the city. So it expanded a bit. And then the third project was then about my family roots in Estonia, because my grandparents were Baltic Germans, or from my mother's side, my grandmother and grandfather, they were Baltic Germans with an Estonian background.
Okay.
And so that's when I mixed historic film material from my archive, from my family archives, or from other sources with my own photography. And then I visited purposefully, some of the places, and I went to certain places and took photography there. So then it got a bit more conscious. But I still enjoy these a bit aimless processes most. this kind of this serendipity sort of. Yes, maybe one theme, a loose theme, but still very open to what it might become.
Yeah, it's so. I don't know. Maybe for you, then it's not really about the photo, is it? It's more about like your process, going
it's about
through
the process. It's not about the perfect photo or the individual. It's always about a series of photos. Definitely. I mean, especially in today's world where everyone takes photos all the time. I mean, of course, the value of individual images has been hugely, devalued, diminished. It's completely photography for me is about the process, and also in that context, also shooting with film is very conducive to that process, because it forces you to choose a bit more slower, because you don't have 100 frames, you have maybe 36 or 12 frames, depending what film you're shooting with. It's expensive. I like Kodak, so Kodak is really very expensive to exploit this the situation. I like the process.
Yeah, and film is like, I agree, because it makes you kind of a better observer in a way, because when we were in design school during my bachelor's, and I had taken a few photography courses here and there, and in one of these courses they actually made us, because we were all using digital cameras, because I'm from a generation when digital was the norm, kind of. But when we started using film, and they made us use film, and they gave us like limited number of images. They were like, okay, take 18 pictures today, and try to make it count. And it kind of, the restriction that film puts on you kind of makes you a better photographer, I would say, if I may, because in a digital environment, you're just like clicking whatever you can, and you're taking like multiple shots of the same thing, and then you go back and you're looking at it, and you're looking through it and scanning, and then selecting the perfect kind of whatever is the best one that you have taken. But there you have like this limitation, and this limitation kind of helps you develop your craft a little more, I would say. But have you ever tried digital?
Not really. I mean, I only use digital photography for my everyday snaps, But if I really pursue photography, and I'm like in this mood of photography that I was talking about, it really, the key word is here. You already mentioned restriction. I stick with that restriction. I'm very used, working as a designer or earlier as an architect. I'm very used and comfortable with working with restrictions. If you build a building for a few, or involved in a building with multiple million of euros, there's so many restrictions. It's very rare that you have this blank sheet of paper where you can do whatever, So I'm very used to and comfortable with that, and I believe I share your view that it's actually conducive to creativity to have these restrictions, and photography gives me this. And since I never worked professionally, I mean I have seriously worked as a photographic artist. I've also sold pictures and so on, but I never worked for clients. So that's why I don't have this pressure.
Right.
So I have a photo shoot, and in the evening I have to
skim through everything.
Photoshop and edit and rework the photos, color tune it, and I just don't have that pressure, so I have no need to go to digital, and so no.
Yeah. Fair enough.
I rather want to try out more film cameras,
Right.
I've never shot with a Hasselblad or something like that, So these large format cameras. I have this 35mm and I've got a 6x6 camera, 120mm film. So that's the two cameras I'm used to, and I want to use other cameras.
Okay. All right.
Film cameras, yeah.
I think we can kind of get into the photos that
Yeah.
you've shared with us.
Yeah.
I will just open up the first one, and it's like the blur that you're talking about. Like the subject is not in focus, but like there seems like there's a story behind it. I mean, we would definitely want to get into the story. And when was this taken? Where was this? If you can just tell us about it.
Yeah, this is one of those family. It's my wife, so it's one of those series. I think it was taken in 2020, or I don't even remember. Was it 20 or 21? I think it was 20, and the exhibition then was in 21. And so it was just part of this series taken with 6x6 film. It gives you a good grain. It gives you a nice range of color, and the process was just as I described before. I was just observing my family, and that moment stood out. It was just my wife working and looking at a computer screen or some phone, or thinking about some job task. There was a constant feature in everyday life. So this moment was then something very intimate and warm, and I thought it just depicted her very well. Who she is, and I took this photo, and that's the thing about film that you only find out later. When you have developed the photo, and then that stood out because it has this painterly quality. Now we see it on a small screen, but this is an original. This is 60 by 60 centimeter. You can also blow it up even, and it would be nice, I think, to have it 120 by 120. And then the colors even come out more in the grain, and it has this painterly quality. I like Gerhard Richter very much. It's a very famous German painter. That is no way a reference here. But indirectly, I didn't have him in mind when I was taking this photo. But I like that it has this kind of blurred, painterly quality. Richter had a different, the reverse process. He took photos of his family and painted them in a photorealistic way, and then with a certain technique made them a bit more blurry again. So it was the other way around, and very, very artful and skillful. But I like that warm, slightly off focus, blurred, painterly quality of the picture.
Yeah, I mean, even though there's like this blur, like the gesture or like the mood is very, it comes through, like through this photo, like that this person is like very focused on something, and and it comes through. And
and I just noticed that this is one of the photos that works with almost everyone that sees this photo, or also the people that see it, in the real big format. It captures them, and so it speaks to other people as well. So it doesn't just work for me. So that's nice that other people also share this slightly mysterious, quality and intimacy of the picture.
Yeah.
But it is also part of a series, So we were talking about individual frames now from completely different series, but it is actually also part of a series of photos that share a similar dreamy, off-focus, contemplative mood.
Okay.
In this case, it was also the format of the square, actually, because and for that exhibition, I had maybe like 11, 12, I don't remember exactly, photos. And they were all exactly the same size, 60 by 60 centimeters, and all the square, because I shot them with this 6x6 camera. So that was maybe the only formal principle. and always natural light. I mean, like, okay, in that case it was not natural, but the light bulb. But I don't stage light. I don't. I don't
it's a
set
natural
it.
environment.
It just happened. It just I don't set up light screens and so on.
Very cool. What about this one?
It was not from the same series, but it was from the preceding series related. It was also on the family, and that is actually my elder son on his last day of school. So in the 12th grade, when he finished his A levels, I think he was very happy, and he knew that I was already on this family photography photo. So we got into a playful mood, and we just went onto the street. It's immediately in Berlin on the street where I was living, and it was like a slightly drizzly, rainy evening. And we were looking for different light sources on the street, and playing around with different different situations, and then that effect just happened because there got some moisture got on the lens.
It's raindrops.
It's the diaphragm is just breaking light, so it's not even raindrops. It's like just a mist, just like some moisture on the lens that is breaking it down, and it's the last day of school, and that was taken in 2019, so basically 1 year before the pandemic. But I mean, it was no conscious thought at the time, but when I named it Last Day of School, because he had also been costumed on that day. I think on the last day of school they had a party where they were dressed up as their childhood heroes, and I think he took some Japanese anime character, and he had this headband and then some maybe war paint in the face, and then so he was already in this kind of in a childish mood on the day on threshold to adulthood.
Right.
Like he was 18 at the time, and of course that got even stronger during the time of pandemic, when you thought often, especially for the young people, it was they were supposed to study now or start their life. The pandemic was, I think, for very young people, very the restrictions, they were very heavy on them. So it gets this the picture has this melancholic yet humorous, it's for me it has both this, what is he doing there, under this light, dancing around on the street. So it has this humor, but also it has a melancholy quality to it.
That's actually that's very deep, because you don't get that from just looking at the photo, because looking at it you get the visual appeal of it. I like the colors, the green and the orange kind of plays well together. There's the shapes that is formed by the mist is also it's super geometric, very hexagonal shapes, and I mean
it was something that just happened. I hadn't
it's happy accidents.
consciously planned for this to happen. But I just saw the colors, the greens, the reds there, and different light sources. But then that extra magic happened, and there's a number of pictures in that series that is, also equally mysterious, and so again, it's part of a series, but it works as a standalone picture. I also sold this picture in an auction, and so it does work for people who don't know the whole context. But I mean, I guess giving a bit of context.
It really helps. Because that's what this whole podcast or series that we're doing is about, because it's about the story behind these photos, because a lot of times, and we are oversaturated with photos nowadays, in the modern world, and I guess but every photo that is taken kind of has even if it's small, it has the story behind it. And I mean, this one, it has a lot, like as you were saying, like, yeah, the childhood to adulthood transition, the pandemic that kind of comes after
It
it.
was looming.
Yeah. It has it makes it a lot more deep, in a way. And again, like the subject is blurry, but you can feel the emotion. Like there's joy and playfulness that you were talking about that comes through again. And I guess that's like that's something that you can kind of do maybe like in your photos.
Yeah, it has crystallized as this previous photo and that one. That's has crystallized as something that I like very much and I can create. Yeah. But it can only happen. It can only I cannot go out now and say I want to take that kind of a photo. It doesn't work.
It won't be genuine. Like.
Yeah.
But also something that I was interested about is that you were talking about the auction. Like, how do you what kind of auction is this, and how do you?
It was a very particular context. Again, in the pandemic time, there was something created in Berlin by some people. It was called the direkte Auktion, so direct auction, and it was basically an initiative, a format to create a networked event in Berlin that would help the local artists, because at that time they couldn't have exhibitions, they couldn't they couldn't really meet their potential buyers. So create something semi-real life, semi-digital, where different curated slots of differently themed photography slots were connected together, and then all these artworks of different kinds. There was photography, there was painting, there was sculpture, there was all kinds of artworks from very established artists, but also very young and unknown newcomer artists. But they were all democratically, shared on the same platform, and then there were always auctions.
Okay.
And the auctions happened in real places, like in small galleries, but they were broadcast live through Facebook, even quite on existing platforms, and was quite cleverly communicated, and it also, the first of these auctions came with a very nicely layouted book where all the artists were in. I was in the second edition that happened only online. But yeah, I was in such a the curator accepted my application and put me into a photography slot with some of those photographers actually quite well known in Germany. I'm totally unknown as a photographer in Germany. So and in that auction, I don't know, there was like a dozen or maybe 15 maximum photos in there. And to my great joy, it was actually sold, the picture in the auction.
Yeah, it's a nice picture, so I get it. Maybe we move on to the next one, which I had to see for a long time to kind of see what's going on here.
Yeah, that's also a picture that has a lot. Okay, maybe you tell me what you see or what you think you see.
I mean, I was just it kind of reminded me of this Windows XP. Do you remember Windows XP? It had like this background, the screensaver, which had these green like, I don't know what they're called, like moors. I think it was a picture of like moors and
Swarms, you mean?
No, like not swamps. It's grasslands.
Grasslands.
Yeah. And it was basically the sky and then these grasslands, which was green. And I was looking at it for some time, and that's what it reminded me of. It's not exactly like that. It has like this road leading up to this this place, which I...
Yeah, what is that? That UFO that landed there in this moonscape?
Yeah, because I noticed this like after some time. Like I was looking at it, and then I zoomed in, and I was like, oh, okay, there's some light and some building kind of structure there. And there's a mountain, like there's one solitary mountain. It's very, very interesting to me. I mean, I would love to hear the story behind it.
again, actually this is a picture in a series of 3. They belong together. It's like a triptych. It's the same building in the background, but taken from further away, and in the end very close up. And it's actually in Iceland. So it's not grass but moss.
Okay.
But this is very, very thick moss, like hundreds of years old layers of moss on lava. So underneath there is lava, because Icelandic is completely volcanic. That's why you don't see any trees there. Iceland doesn't have any trees left. They have like a 1% forest or something. And there's this. It was in November, when it already gets pretty dark in the Arctic, close to the Arctic Circle. It's funnily enough, actually, this very place, Grindavik, is very, very close. This particular building, I think, is literally a few hundred meters from this latest big volcanic eruption in Iceland last year, right? When this town had to be evacuated, and the lava stopped a few hundred meters from that building. So that building still exists, but so that's just like last year. But that photo was taken in 2008 or 9. I had moved to Iceland for a while, and again, this has a very crazy background. In 2008, I had actually come to Iceland to work with an Icelandic friend of mine, and we wanted to make little mini hotel projects in Iceland, because there's a lot of warm water everywhere in Iceland, the geothermal water, and we wanted to make little mini spa and hotel projects. And but then we started a completely different project, which was called Friends of Water, vatnavinir in Icelandic. And we worked together with designers, business people, philosophers, architects, artists, and it was all themed about this topic of geothermal water. And so we were also taking a lot of trips in the countryside, and so and it was in a time in 2008 during the Lehman Brothers crisis, the big global financial crisis of 2008. But there was, especially in Iceland, was one of the countries where the country almost faltered. Within a week, I think the 3 major banks just went bust. And there were really, as a whole country, which is such a small nation, there are only 300,000 people, really very close to going over the edge as a country. And in that time, some of the environmentalists and also some of the people that were more forward-looking, what Iceland could become, other than a banking spot or something, they were collecting future initiatives, that had a different outlook on Iceland, and so this we were also working with this famous singer Björk, who is a very famous in Iceland, also an environmentalist, and so she invited us, and she also invited that company that sits in that greenhouse building. So you have greenhouses all over Iceland, because you have this hot water, so they heat it even in the winter. So and they have very cheap energy, because in geothermal power stations you can make electricity, so they can grow tomatoes in December in Iceland, so that kind of stuff. But that particular building, I think, was actually a genetic company that they were growing plants and were doing genetic experiments in there at that time. I don't know what's in there now, but there was some other companies, also like a pretty progressive company. So I just thought it's like this beacon of progress, and but also like a bit eerie, like this UFO that has landed there in the middle of nowhere.
It's very solitary. Like there's only one building and one mountain in the background. That's it.
So the composition is great, but it's also this really eerie object that has, what is it? Is this a promising prospect, of a bright future, or is that even a bit dangerous, or is that there's also this road leading to it? It's almost like a Doctor Who kind of James Bond sort of scene, right? Where someone could have their world headquarters of evil or something like that.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
so I mean, stuff like that, and it was again this mood, when you're driving around in Iceland in November. You know, it really the days are already getting very short, and it's gloomy. It's it's not a happy time, and yeah, against the background of this historic time, it was I had that mood also, like wow, but nobody has the answers, where are we going from here, so like yeah, I think that was kind of the story of that. I could also it's also interesting, the first two photos that we looked at, they were basically done without any conscious manipulation. They were they're just the frames, the photo frames that you saw. That was the photo, and then the film was developed and it was printed on paper. But there was no other color grading or tuning or whatever happening. With that picture, actually, the original format is not square.
Okay.
I actually added like 1/3 of the top part of the picture. I added in Photoshop the sky. So so I basically just repeated the sky and made I made the sky more expansive and more I don't know. It's like dwelling on that scene, right? And so it also shifts the perspective of the whole and the composition. It's almost this like golden section, not quite, but almost. Yeah, like so that was I don't ever do that now. Like reshaping pictures, but I used to do that in earlier times in landscape pictures.
So this was originally a landscape, right? This was originally a landscape.
Yeah.
It's another very interesting story. We'll move on to the next one, which is, it took me some time to realize it's 2 pictures.
Yes.
Yeah. And it has like a lot going on. It's some form of airport scene, and like it has this like mood, because I think it's very relatable as well, because everybody has like waited in an airport and like you always wonder what to do, and like where was this and what's going on here.
Yeah, now we're going back in time. We could have also gone chronologically, but now we jump from 2008. Before it was already 2020, then 2008. Now we would jump back to 1996.
Okay, that's before I was born. So
yeah, so that is you're rightly observed. It's 2 pictures, actually the same picture. Just if you look closely, the same picture taken with a different focus. Right? Yeah. So there's the same tower in the background, and so it's just different focus of the picture. And they. It's taken in Hong Kong. That was exactly that time in Hong Kong, and so I was still pursuing black and white photography back then, and so that was the only one I chose from that black and white times. And again, like a manipulation, but the only manipulation here is actually to put these photos next to each other. Yeah. And because of the mountains in the background, they become a panorama.
It's an illusion, kind of.
Yeah, it's like a panorama, which it actually is not. And the story here is that there used to be the airport, Kai Tak Airport in Hong Kong used to be downtown. There is in the background the mountains. That's Hong Kong Island, and we are standing now on the peninsula of Kowloon, which so basically in the background after this runway there would be the actual the Victoria Harbour, quite a broad stretch of sea to the actual Hong Kong Island, and airport Kai Tak was very central in Kowloon at the time, in a very densely populated area, and the runway was sticking out into the sea. You can see in front, and also behind there would be water, and the left end of the runway that you don't see on the picture, it ended in water as well. So you had to have specially trained pilots to land on that airport, because there are also mountains behind the runway on the right side of the picture. So you have to bring this jumbo jet, on the right side of the picture it's a 747,
Mhm.
You have to really, fly over the mountains, a very dense, super densely populated neighborhood, and then immediately after that bring down this plane on this runway. And no major accident ever happened on this airport, miraculously. And that is of course a unique place in the world
Mhm.
of that kind of airport sticking out into the sea in one of the densest cities in the world.
Mhm.
And I was working at the time for the mass transit railway, so the Hong Kong subway company, they're running metro trains, and they were just they were having their offices close to that end of the airport. So my lunch breaks, I always went there because it was such a super interesting scenery, and I took a lot of photos. And then at some stage, I one day years later, so I took that photo in '96, as I said, but I think in 2001 or 2002, three even. I put these pictures next to each other. I thought, oh wow, there's something happening here. So I did, again thought, and that was that was the immediate story, and the format. Actually, in print, this is like more than 1 meter wide, and I don't remember 40, 50 centimeters
Mhm.
high, or something like 40 centimeters high. Um, and I was really influenced by like these kind of panoramas that Andreas Gursky, like this German
Mhm.
Düsseldorf school photographer did. He never works, or hardly ever works, with black and white, but he did these really panoramic shots with high resolution, and so I for a few years I was really interested in that, and that is the
Mhm.
young Jörn, 23-year-old Jörn, architectural student on an internship at Mass Transit Railway Hong Kong, spending his lunch breaks at funny airports in Hong Kong. Yeah, that's the background of that picture.
Yeah, but that's interesting because it's like it's not the airport itself. Like you are not in the airport, are you? You're in your office or wherever.
No, there was no. I'm out of the office, but there was just, you could get. I'm probably just outside the fence of
Mhm.
the runway.
Mhm.
The airport building would be on the right end of the picture.
Mhm.
But I would have been just in front of the fence, I guess. I think there was some kind of a height. Was it even a viewing platform, or was it, some place off the road that you could get a slightly elevated position
Mhm.
where you could shoot over this fence? But yeah, I'm outside the fence of the airport premises and not in the airport. Yeah.
Right.
And these horizontal,
Mhm.
the vertical masts, like
Yeah.
there would have been lighting masts, apart from the gap in the middle, which is just the gap between the two
Mhm.
photos.
Yeah. Yeah.
I kind of,
Yeah.
that also works well, of course, with the
Yeah. Yeah.
other.
That's why it was
Uh,
kind of
yeah,
illusion like, which.
yeah. So it looks like windows of a huge
Yeah. Yeah.
airport, or
Because that's what I thought it was. I thought
yeah.
it was like it had glass here, but yeah, apparently
Yeah.
not. Yeah.
There's lots of tricks that
Yeah.
that this plays on you. Yeah.
Mm. But interestingly, this is like not related to the photo, but like this place. Um, I very recently, I think last year or so, I was reading about this place a lot because I was reading this series, this trilogy by this Indian author called Amitabh Ghosh, and he had written this series on the Opium Wars that took place in China in the 1800s. And this place was kind of mentioned in his third book a lot, where so this was the Victoria Harbour is basically the entrance to Canton in that time, and Hong Kong was not at all developed back then. It was just like few huts, and this part, the Kowloon part, and then like the Victoria Harbour going to Canton, that was way more developed. And like he had written a lot about this place, and like just a anecdote that I'm sharing, but it's interesting that it's this place in the modern day because I'm reading about it in the 1800s, which was in my mind it was different, but like he describes it like that because these mountains and stuff, now I can see it. And that's just some anecdote.
Yeah, but the this this airport doesn't exist in this place anymore. So after I left Hong Kong in '96, or I think in '97, '98 or something like that, they opened a new airport on an outlying island. They created artificial reclaimed land north of that island and made a new airport.
Okay. And this is the last of your pictures. And what about this? Is this again the sky has been added?
Again, sky has been added. So, but that picture, it's pretty much the same mood and technique as with the one from Iceland. But it's a bit different because I used a disposable camera. It's the cheapest, like Fuji or whatever supermarket disposable camera as you can imagine, and it was just around Easter time. It's an island on the Baltic Sea coast in eastern Germany, which is called Hiddensee, a very beautiful island with a slightly undulated landscape, and there's a little hill, from where you have this view over the landscape, and so in the very early morning in this mist, I climbed this hill and just took that photo with that really crappy camera, which was like, in that mist, was perfect. And then I just added even a bit more grain and this, even more radically, the sky, so the landscape is almost like disappearing there, and all the people that might be in there or not, and the trees, they become these really tiny, creatures lost in the world. And so that was like purely almost like a impressionist sort of picture. This picture from Iceland before that even had a bit of a you could say a bit of a political backdrop, right? But this one is purely landscape impressionist photo.
I really like how the mountain in the background kind of disappears after a while, and it's because of the mist, I guess, or the clouds. But it has this peaceful kind of vibe to it.
It was this early morning and really
and the sky is completely white, which is again like it has this kind of surreal, because like it's rarely like this white. And
it's amazing, right? I mean, sometimes the sky is just really, really white, and I've also taken a similar picture like that again in Iceland, where it was the blue hour, in the afternoon, and so the sky was like this blue, and the treeless landscape was completely snowy, but also blue then. So basically, the whole picture is basically just blue, and there's a few skiers lost there. So you have a blue nothing with a few astronauts, swimming around in there. So that was taken later, but I think that was an early, the first kind of this kind of impressionist, let's say, composition, and But interesting. Let me ask. Can I ask you a question also?
Sure.
Was there a particular reason why you chose the pictures in a particular order, or you just picked any
No,
picture?
it was in the order that it was in your folder.
That was just completely random. Because I had chosen them in an almost chronographic, so like from Hong Kong, then that picture would have been second, then the Iceland picture would have been third, and then the dancer under the streetlight would have been fourth, and then the portrait fifth, because that was the development. That's kind of where I stand now. But I mean, it's they can stand for themselves. Each of these photos have their own story.
Right. Well, thank you for sharing these stories with us today, and I think this brings us to the end of the episode, kind of. And thank you again for taking out the time and speaking to me. And I mean, I really have gained an understanding into your view about photography a little bit, about what it means to you and how you go about the photographing process. And yeah, it was a pleasure to listen to your stories today. Thank you so much.
Very much a pleasure for me to be here and to have this chat and to reflect on photography. It's very enjoyable act to do that. Yeah.